They say every key opens a door. That's the first thing they teach you when you apprentice under a master locksmith. Doesn't matter if it's a skeleton key, a tubular one, a high-security restricted blank. If it has teeth, it belongs to a lock. And if there's a lock, there's always a door. Or so I thought. I've been in the trade for 17 years now. Grew up around it. My old man ran Henderson Lock and Safe in a rundown corner of Redbridge, and I took over after he passed. I do everything. Car ignitions, antique chests, bank vaults, house calls. The jobs have gotten stranger over the years, but I never minded. People get weird about security. I've had clients pay triple just to make a custom lock with no duplicates. I've also been asked to lose a key on purpose. Don't ask. But 3 months ago, I got a job I should have turned down. And ever since, I haven't been able to stop seeing keyholes where they shouldn't be. On my fridge, on trees, in the mirror, even under my fingernail once. It started with a simple envelope. No return address. Just a neat stamp in the corner. RK73 Orchard Row. Inside were instructions. Precise, mechanical, obsessive instructions. Make 40 keys, all different cuts, each with a number engraved on the handle, 01 through 40. Include matching blank tags, but do not stamp the tags. Enclose in a black velvet pouch, seal it, and deliver it in person to 73 Orchard Row. Payment in full, $5,000 in crisp hundreds, enclosed. No one drops $5,000 cash in an envelope, not unless they want something hush-hush. I should have tossed it. I didn't. I ran my thumb along the edge of the envelope again, rereading the instructions by desk lamp. 40 keys, custom, hand-cut. The specs weren't standard. They were obsessive. Each cut depth was given to the half-millimeter, biting sequences that didn't match any modern pin tumblers I knew. Some of the keys had strange profiles too, off-center bows, twisted shafts, one with a faint spiral etched into its shoulder. It was like someone wanted a batch of keys for locks that didn't exist. But the money was real. I spread the bills across my workbench, fresh, sharp-edged hundreds that smelled like printer ink and starch. I counted them twice. $5,000, cash, no strings, or so I thought. I told myself it was probably for a movie prop, an art project. Rich people do weird things all the time. I'd made weirder orders. At least I wanted to believe that. It took me 3 nights to finish the batch. Each key was its own tiny ritual. Cut, file, polish, tag. I worked alone, late into the night, with nothing but the metal scream against the grinder and the faint creak of my bench stool for company. My dog, a droopy-eared mutt named Juno, sat curled in the corner the whole time. She didn't sleep like usual, just stared at me, unblinking. By the 3rd night, I swear she was trembling. I don't remember when I first heard the tapping. It was soft, like a fingernail on wood. At first I thought it was just the wind, or maybe Juno shifting her paws. But it got louder the closer I got to finishing. By the 34th key, it had rhythm. Tap, 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 tap. I paused the grinder and turned. Nothing behind me. Juno was gone. I checked the door. Still locked. No wind, no creaking floorboards. But the tapping kept going, only now it was coming from the other side of my workroom wall, the one that faced the alley. Tap, 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 tap. I pressed my ear to it. Nothing. Then I noticed something new. Near the baseboard, almost hidden behind a tool rack, was a small brass circle, no bigger than a coin. I knelt down and brushed the dust away. It was a keyhole, not a mark or stain or random hardware piece. A keyhole, embedded in the drywall like it had always been there. I hadn't noticed it before, and I know that wall. I built the damn shelving myself. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't have a lock plate or screws. Just a perfect oval mouth, dark and glinting slightly under the lamplight. The kind of thing you felt more than saw. And it was warm, not hot like a heater vent, warm like breath. I stood up too fast and knocked over a box of blanks. Keys clattered everywhere like metal teeth. I grabbed a flashlight and swept the room again, this time calling for Juno. No answer. I found her hiding in the kitchen behind the fridge. She whimpered when I picked her up. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, the keyhole was gone. I checked the workroom first thing, dragged the tool rack away, ran my fingers along the baseboard. Nothing, just flat painted drywall. No brass, no indent, no trace of anything ever being there. I even knocked along the wall, tapping for hollows like some kind of amateur ghost hunter. Same solid thud all the way through. I told myself I must have imagined it. Sleep deprivation, fumes from the grinder, something like that. It didn't explain Juno's behavior, but dogs spook easy. Probably heard a raccoon in the alley. Probably. I sealed the last few keys into the black velvet pouch just before noon. All 40, numbered and wrapped in felt. I tucked it into a messenger bag and headed for Orchard Row. I'd never heard of the street, even though I've lived in Redbridge my whole life. Google Maps didn't list it. Neither did Waze. I had to dig out an old city atlas from my father's shop drawer to find it. A little dead-end spur nestled behind an overgrown cemetery and a boarded-up church. No stop signs, no traffic lights. One way in, one way out. It took me 20 minutes of wrong turns to find the entrance. The street was choked with vines and soft with rot. The pavement had buckled in places like something underneath had pushed upward. Cracks ran in every direction, filled with moss and dirt. I parked at the mouth of the road and walked the rest of the way. 73 Orchard Row looked like it hadn't been lived in for decades. 3 stories tall, red brick faded to brown. The shutters were half rotted, one dangling by a rusted hinge. The windows were dark and thick with grime, and the door, well, the door is what stopped me. It wasn't like the rest of the house. The door was new. Polished black wood, with a gleaming brass knob and a centered keyhole. It looked like it had just been installed. No dust, no weather damage. It even smelled like fresh lacquer. I hesitated before knocking. There was no doorbell, just that glinting keyhole staring back at me like an eye. For a second I had the irrational urge to kneel and look through it, but the moment the thought crossed my mind, something in my chest tightened, like my lungs had seized. Instead, I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. Then I noticed the slip of paper wedged between the door frame and the brick. Slide the pouch through the mail slot. Do not wait. Mail slot? Sure enough, there it was. Polished brass, just like the knob. I hadn't seen it at first. It hadn't been there at first. I hesitated, hand gripping the pouch tight. Then I slid it in. It disappeared into the dark. As soon as I let go, I felt it. Pressure. Like the air thickened, the leaves stopped rustling, the birds shut up. Even my own breath felt muffled. I turned and walked fast. By the time I got back to my car, my shirt was soaked through with sweat. Juno was waiting in the passenger seat. She'd never jumped in on her own before. That night, the keyhole came back, not in the workroom this time, in my bathroom mirror. I just brushed my teeth when I noticed it, off to the left corner, just behind the reflection of my shoulder. A small dark hole, brass-rimmed, right in the glass. Not on it, in it. I turned around, nothing on the real mirror. Looked back at the reflection, still there. I stared, heart hammering in my throat. And then, I swear to God, I saw movement inside the hole. Something shifted behind it. I didn't look closer. I ran. I didn't sleep that night either. Not even with every light in the house on. Not even with Juno curled up beside me, growling low at the walls. The keyhole in the mirror vanished by morning, same as the one in the workroom. I stood there for 10 minutes, brushing my fingers along the surface, trying to feel some difference, coldness, a ripple, something. But it was just glass again. For a while I thought maybe I'd finally snapped. Maybe the long hours in isolation and fumes had finally pushed my brain past the point of no return. Hallucinations, paranoia, the works, that would have been a relief. But then I got a second envelope, same stamp, Same neat handwriting. It was sitting on my front porch when I stepped out to grab the paper. This one didn't have instructions. It had a photo, grainy, black and white, a hallway I didn't recognize, peeling wallpaper, slanted floorboards, one crooked door at the end. Written across the bottom in that same perfect cursive, key in 12, no return address, no other note. I didn't want to, but I checked my workshop. The velvet pouch was gone, but I still had the brass blank tags. They were supposed to be unmarked. One of them, 12th, was missing. That night the keyholes multiplied. I found one in the wooden panel beneath the kitchen sink, one in the drywall behind my bed, one in the back of the medicine cabinet. They weren't installed. They were just there, like the house had grown them. Each was the same perfect brass lining, no scratch marks, no screws, like a portal, like a wound. And worse, every time I looked away, just for a second, I'd swear they shifted, like they were following me, watching me. The first time I looked through one, I wasn't even trying. It was the one behind the bed. I dropped my phone while reaching for the outlet and saw something glint behind the nightstand. I leaned closer. The keyhole was staring back at me, a little wider now, a little darker. I don't know what made me do it, morbid curiosity, exhaustion, or maybe something else, but I knelt down and pressed my eye to it. At first, blackness, then shapes, barely there outlines, a corridor, like the photo. The air on the other side shimmered. The hallway was all wrong, too long. The walls bowed inward like they were breathing, and something moved at the far end, a shape. Thin, tilting sideways, not walking, leaning as though suspended. Its head twitched when I blinked, and then, before I could pull away, it raised something toward its face, something round, something that glinted. It had a key. I reeled back, slammed into the dresser, knocked over a lamp. My heart wouldn't slow down. My eye burned like I'd been flash-blinded. The darkness in the keyhole had moved. I sealed the hole with duct tape, then another, then a pillow over that, then moved my mattress into the hallway. I tried sleeping in the living room that night, but even there I saw them, tiny gleams in the corners of the room, just out of reach. I covered them with towels. Juno barked and paced for hours, tail low, head lowered toward the floor like she could smell something rising. At 3:12 a.m., the front door unlocked itself. I heard the latch slide. The knob turned. It didn't open. It just clicked. Something had used a key. I didn't open the front door. I didn't move. I sat frozen on the living room floor, clutching Juno against my chest like she could somehow protect me from whatever had just unlocked my door without touching it. But nothing came in. Nothing moved. The knob just reset. A quiet turn. The soft sound of mechanics falling back into place, and then silence again. When daylight came, I checked the lock. Still deadbolted, no sign of forced entry, no footprints on the porch, no wind, just that lingering, skin-crawling feeling that something had been here. I skipped the shop that day. I just couldn't. I started checking every inch of my house instead, every drawer, every cabinet, even behind the appliances. Juno followed me from room to room, tail low, legs trembling. I found 8 more keyholes by noon. None of them should have existed. 2 were in places physically impossible, one on the ceiling of the hallway, another embedded in the glass of the microwave door. The one in the microwave stared straight at me whenever I walked into the kitchen. I stopped using it, stopped eating entirely, really. And then the 3rd envelope arrived. This one wasn't on the porch. It was inside my house, sitting neatly on my pillow. It was already open. Inside was a single page of parchment, thicker than the last, older somehow, almost brittle. The ink was sepia-toned, handwritten in the same precise hand. All locks require a counterpart. Yours is the 41st. The game is observation. You have been seen. Underneath it was another photograph. This one was of me, standing in my workshop, back turned, leaning over the key grinder. Juno curled at my feet. I stared at it for a long time, hands shaking. I checked every corner of the room, opened every cabinet, pulled the outlet covers off the walls. I even disassembled the smoke alarm, thinking maybe it had a hidden camera. Nothing, no sender, no return address, just a single name signed at the bottom, Arkin Cairn. I'd never heard of him, but the way it was signed, with a flourish like some kind of artist or aristocrat, chilled me more than anything else. It felt ritualistic. I searched his name online. No social media, no business license, no phone number, but I did find something buried in an obscure locksmithing forum. An old post, 2011, from a user who only posted once, subject Arkin Cairn Commission. Got a request from someone named Arkin Cairn. Sent me a huge envelope with specs for 30+ custom keys. All cuts are weird. Numbers instead of names. No address on the return label. Anyone else get something like this? I didn't answer, just felt wrong. Curious if this is a prank, or worse. There were no replies. The account had no activity after that. I tried messaging him. The account had been deleted. That night, the tapping came back. Not from one place, but from everywhere. Behind walls, inside vents, from under the floorboards, and worst of all, from the mirror. It wasn't rhythmic anymore. It was mimicry. When I shifted in bed, it tapped. When Juno whined, it tapped faster. When I held my breath, it went completely silent. It was learning me. I didn't stay in the house the next night. I packed a bag, stuffed it into my truck, and drove 3 towns over to a motel that didn't ask questions. I didn't even leave a note in the shop. I just flipped the sign to closed and left everything behind. Juno didn't relax until we were 30 miles out. The motel was one of those roadside relics with key hooks behind the counter and dusty soda machines out front. But it was quiet, remote. I paid cash and didn't give my name. The clerk handed me an actual metal room key attached to a cracked plastic fob. Room 7. I locked the door 3 times and shoved a chair under the knob. I slept in my clothes with the bag of tools by the bed and a hammer in my hand. Still didn't help. At 3:42 a.m., the keyholes found me. I woke to Juno barking, snarling like I'd never heard before. Real primal fear. I sat up too fast, heart pounding, and saw her standing rigid in the middle of the room, teeth bared at the nightstand. There was a keyhole in the drawer. Wasn't there before, wasn't part of the furniture. It hadn't formed there, it had arrived, and something behind it moved. I didn't look through. I didn't need to. I picked up the hammer, yanked the drawer clean off the rails and threw it through the window. Glass shattered into the parking lot. Cold wind blasted in. I grabbed Juno, the bag, and sprinted out barefoot into the gravel. I didn't stop running until I reached the truck. I drove the rest of the night. In the morning, I made a decision. I needed answers, real ones. So I started digging again into that old forum post about Kincairn, the one from 2011. I searched the username through archive tools, found a cached profile. The man's name was Elijah Merrow, owned a lock and safe service in upstate New York, no longer in business. After 2 hours of calling old directories, I found a listing, a disconnected landline. But I traced the address to a warehouse on Route 15 that had been boarded up since 2014. According to property records, Elijah Merrow disappeared without a trace that same year. Police found his workshop door open, lights on, all keys missing. The only thing left inside was a velvet pouch, black, empty, just like mine. I drove there. The warehouse was easy to miss, set back behind a stretch of rusted chain-link fencing and half buried in vines. The windows were gone, just black sockets staring out into overgrown brush. I crawled through a broken side door and into the old shop, dust thick enough to taste. Tools rusted in place, faded key charts peeling off the walls. On the workbench, a notebook lay curled and brittle from time. I flipped it open. Every page was filled with drawings of keys. Dozens, hundreds, each labeled with a number. The margins were full of scribbled observations. Door appeared in mirror again, larger this time. Keyhole followed me to the car. Used rear view. I saw him today, watching from inside. Do not let them learn your eye. And on the last page, scrawled so hard the pen tore through the paper. There is no lock without a key. There is no key without a door. Doors lead back to him. The name at the bottom was smeared, but I recognized the initials, RK. That night I drove home, not because I felt safe, but because the realization hit me. There's nowhere I can go that they won't find me. The keyholes weren't in the house, they were in me. I didn't go back to the motel, didn't go back to the shop. I drove home on autopilot, like something was guiding me, not pulling, not forcing, but calling. I knew it was stupid. I knew I shouldn't, but I think I needed to see if the house was still mine. It wasn't. The keyholes were waiting. As soon as I stepped through the front door, I felt it, that pressure. Like gravity bent slightly inward, like the walls were breathing in and not exhaling. Juno didn't growl this time. She whimpered and bolted for the bedroom, tail between her legs. The hallway had 4 keyholes now, all aligned with the baseboards, all gleaming in the dark. The one at the end, just above the floor vent, was open, not unlocked, open. A jagged slit of shadow like a cracked pupil. I could see the other side. The hallway again, but wrong, tilted, as though seen through warped glass. Light flickered from a source I couldn't see, casting long, impossible shadows on slanted walls. And then a hand reached through, just the fingers, long, thin. The nails not jagged, not broken, but polished, impossibly clean. They tapped once on the floor, then again. A slow, deliberate rhythm. I didn't move, couldn't. The fingers turned, not toward me, but toward one of the other keyholes. They touched it, and it opened. A second keyhole split wide in the opposite wall, unraveling like a wound. Another warped corridor beyond it, another flickering shadow, another hand. I backed up, slowly, deliberately. My breathing sharpened my throat. Then the first hand twitched and slid fully through the hole, the wrist, the forearm. No blood, no sinew. Just smooth skin that didn't shine but drank light. And behind it, just before I turned and fled, I saw the thing it was attached to. A man's silhouette. Lanky, dressed in black. His head was tilted sharply to one side, like his neck had broken and never healed. His face, no. He didn't have a face, he had a keyhole. Dead center, where his nose and eyes should be. And inside it, I saw an eye peering out. I locked myself in the basement, nailed the door shut, pulled shelves in front of it, sat with my back to the concrete wall, trying not to scream. I stayed there until morning. When I finally crept back upstairs, all the keyholes were closed again. Except one, the mirror. I didn't look. I taped paper over it, covered every reflective surface I could find. The TV, the toaster, even puddles from the leaky pipe in the garage. I didn't want to risk seeing that thing again. But the worst part, it was no longer just the house. When I went to throw the mirror in the dumpster behind the shop, planning to leave town for good, I passed a fire hydrant on the curb. It had a keyhole, not on the cap, not in the bolt, in the metal side, plain as day, brass-lined, staring at me. And behind it, a shape moved. I drove, nowhere in particular, just away. Every mile felt heavier. Like the farther I got from Redbridge, the thicker the air became, until even the sunlight felt dimmer, like it was pushing through water to reach me. The road signs looked normal, the other cars were real, but the world itself felt shifted, tilted, off axis. The keyholes followed. At a diner off Route 22, I spotted one in the napkin holder. Just a glint at first, but when I leaned down to tie my shoe, it was there, dark and rimmed with brass, hidden behind the clear plastic sleeve that held the daily specials. I didn't eat. I left cash and walked out. At a gas station an hour later, one was in the side of the pump, another in the vending machine's glass. Even the goddamn moon looked like it had a slit across its surface that night. I don't know if that was in my head or not. I don't want to know. I made it to Arkfield, 2 states over, and holed up in a small private library where they kept microfiche records. I had a new goal now, find our Cairn. Not the name, the pattern. I dug through locksmith guild registries, incident reports, trade magazines. I looked for anything involving custom key orders, strange disappearances, or deaths linked to locksmiths. That's when I found the obituaries. Over the past 30 years, at least 5 documented locksmiths had vanished, all in different states, different ages, different specialties, all private, solo operators. Each had been approached by a client with no return address. Each had made a set of keys. Each disappeared within 6 months. One article stood out. From 1996. It didn't mention keys or clients, just the discovery of a small sealed door in a condemned apartment building in Boston. No knob, no hinges, just a single keyhole set in black wood, surrounded by a jagged outline like it had been burned into the wall. The fire marshal reported hearing something inside. Whispering, breathing, metal scraping wood. They tried to open it. Couldn't. Not with force, not with blowtorches, not with lockpicks. The building was demolished 2 weeks later. The photo in the article showed a man standing next to the door. Black suit, crooked head, no face. The caption just said, "Unknown consultant," but I knew. I knew. Arkin Cairn wasn't a man. He was a placeholder, a title. I didn't sleep again. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I dreamed of keyholes, floating in darkness. Hundreds, thousands, all watching, all waiting. Something pressed against them from the other side, always out of reach, always about to push through. The worst part? The dreams didn't stop when I woke up. That's when I knew what the 41 Stones key was for. Not a door, not a safe, not a chest. Me. I was the lock. Somehow, in making those keys, cutting them, shaping them, giving them numbers, I had opened something inside myself. The 41 Stones key was a seed, and now it had grown. I tried to end it. I burned the velvet tags, dismantled the grinder, smashed every key blank I had left. But it didn't matter. That night, when I looked in the mirror, I saw something waiting just behind the glass. Not a keyhole this time, a face, mine, but the eyes were holes. And the smile, it was cut, like someone had carved it into the reflection with a jagged key. I stopped running. I knew, deep down, that there was nowhere left to go. Nowhere they wouldn't find me. No mirror I could cover, no distance that mattered. The keyholes weren't following me anymore. They were waiting. It wasn't a matter of where anymore. It was when, and that when came on the 33rd night. It began with silence. No wind, no sirens, not even the hum of the fridge, just the slow, suffocating press of stillness, as if the world had inhaled and never let go. Then came the tapping. Soft, deliberate, like metal on wood, echoing from every surface, the walls, the floorboards, my chest cavity. And then the whisper. The lock is ready. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I just stood in the center of the house, my house once, barefoot, hollow-eyed, watching as the walls around me bloomed. Keyholes, dozens, hundreds, every surface covered, like mold, like infection, each one glinting with quiet anticipation, and then they started opening. The drywall cracked. The door frames trembled, and one by one the keyholes stretched into doors, thin, malformed doors with no hinges and no handles, just black, like the absence of space. And he stepped through. The Keyhole Man, the same shape I had seen through the glass, through the hallway, through the mirror. But now he was whole, tall, wrongly proportioned, his limbs too long, head bowed at an unnatural angle like it was listening to something beneath him. He wore a coat made of tags, each velvet, each marked with a number. The numbers glowed faintly. I saw mine, 41, stitched directly over his chest. Where his face should have been, there was a single vertical keyhole. It pulsed, it blinked, and then he spoke, not with a voice, with feeling. Words pressed into my mind like warm blades. The locksmith always thinks the key is made for the door, but the door is made for the key. And the key is made from you. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He raised one hand, those same smooth, pale fingers, and in its palm sat the 41st key. My key, the only one I never cut, except I had. I felt it then, an emptiness under my ribs, a hollow space behind my sternum, a cavity, as if something had been carved out of me when I wasn't looking. And he reached for it, not my hand, not my pocket. He reached for my chest. I screamed, not because of pain, but because something unlocked. It was like falling inward, spiraling into a vacuum inside myself. I saw flashes of every key I ever made, every door I never opened, every mirrored reflection that wasn't really me. I saw Elijah Marrow. I saw all of them, dozens of locksmiths across time, some screaming, some silent, some reaching through keyholes like they thought they could escape the place they were becoming. And then, darkness. I woke up in the shop, not my house, not the motel, my old workbench, tools neatly arranged, grinder humming softly. Juno gone. A velvet pouch in my lap. I reached inside and found one key, numbered 42. The pouch felt warm. That should have been the first sign something was wrong. Metal doesn't retain heat like that. Not in an unlit room, not in a shop that's been shuttered for weeks. But the key was warm, almost pulsing. And when I held it, something behind my eyes clicked, like a gear finally slotting into place. 42. The number was engraved in the same precise hand as all the others, but this one wasn't just a continuation of the set. It felt final, not the next step. The end. I turned slowly in the chair. The shop was exactly as I'd left it, but quieter, as though the world beyond it no longer existed. My phone was dead. The clock above the register read 12 and didn't move. There was no sound from outside, no wind, no traffic, just me and the key and the door. I don't know how I didn't see it at first. At the far end of the shop, where there used to be a tool cabinet, now stood a door I had never built, never installed. Tall, black, seamless, no knob, no frame, just flush wood and a single keyhole at eye level. The moment I saw it, I understood. I wasn't meant to unlock it. It was meant to unlock me. I don't remember walking toward it. My feet moved on their own, as if caught in a tide. I raised the key. My fingers didn't shake. My heart didn't pound. All fear had drained from me. Only certainty remained. I slid the key in, turned, click. The sound echoed like a scream held too long. The door didn't swing open. It peeled, slowly, like a slit in paper widening under pressure. The air around it bent inward. The light turned sideways, and on the other side, there was no room, no hall, no world, just void, a massive rotating cylinder of keys, locks, and mirrors, an impossible space made entirely of openings, each one watching, each one waiting. At the center stood him, the Keyhole Man. But now, I knew his face because it was mine. Every detail, every scar, the same eyes, the same broken nose I got when I was 16, but his eyes weren't looking at me. They were looking through me because I was no longer the locksmith. I was the door, and he stepped inside. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember pain. I remember turning like a mechanism. My chest opened, my mouth widened, my ribs folded outward and revealed locks, not organs, not bone, just glistening brass tumblers and dark keyways. And I remember his voice, not with ears, but within. One key becomes the next, one door leads to another. The chain remains unbroken, and then silence. They found the shop weeks later, empty, no sign of struggle. No blood, just a single key sitting on the workbench. Tag marked, number 1. The velvet pouch was gone. The grinder was still warm, and a new locksmith has taken over the business. Young guy, quiet, works alone, good with custom orders. I don't know his name, but I do know this. He just got an envelope. No return address, no sender. Only a slip of paper that reads, Please make 41 keys, all unique. Delivered to 73 Orchard Row. Payment enclosed.